All right, happy Friday, everybody. Good to see everyone that's in the audience today. I know we're going to be talking through a little bit around education. I'm getting things rocking. So I'll tell you, getting an education. What is it like to get an education in the world? Welcome to the Clear Channel, by the way. Our goal in the Clear Channel is to help change the world one leader at a time. And if you haven't got a chance to subscribe, please subscribe, pass it on to friends or family or people in general that you feel that can help make an impact on. But getting an education, I'll tell you, I did some research recently. $25,000 to $30,000 a year, depending on the state. It's costing kids today for a private college education. 15 to 20,000, typically in a lot of state-run educations. And I think back to college, right? There's a lot of people in the room, a lot of people in our office that have great educations, go to Big Ten schools. There's people that are in our organization that have been in Ivy League schools, ACC, D1, D2, D3, a lot of athletes and things that have gotten great educations as well as playing sports. And, I was thinking to myself recently, what is it about college? What is it about a university? When I was in high school, my parents, said to me, you have to get good grades in high school, because when you get good grades, and no matter if you're a good athlete or not, you're going to have to, you want to get into a good university. Because when you go to a university and you start to, you start to get educated, you start building your skill sets, you start learning more, then at some point you graduate, and some point you go off into the workforce. And I don't know, it was always just pounded in me, pound. You got to get good grades to go to college. And then once you graduate college, then you can have some options. And I'll tell you, after 4 years of being in college, going to a university, and for me, it was an out-of-state tuition. Thankfully, I was a decent athlete, so I got some scholarship money. Thankfully, I'm because of my mom coming to the U.S. and being Hispanic, I was able to qualify for some minority scholarships and things. But thankfully, a lot of my education was paid for. So when I graduated, I didn't have any debt, and that's a win for some in the world. I know a lot of people aren't as fortunate as I was, and they have to work through college, and they have to pay their own way, and it's really, really hard. And and I'll tell you, and I think about that education, and I'll tell you, besides people that go to college that get a specialization, besides people that go to college to become a doctor, become like a specific physician, I've thought recently a lot about, what did I even go to college for? Like, what came out of it? What real life skills came out of going to college? And I guess it could be argued that social skills got increased in college. I guess it could be argued that, I've created some, relationships in college with people that have lasted many, many years. Some, only lasted through college. And I guess it could be argued that I grew up a little bit, moving away from Florida and going to Pennsylvania, as a lot of people move out of state sometimes. So maturity, yes, you kind of mature, I guess. I guess some people mature in college. Maybe a lot of people don't, and they're still trying to in their 20s. And I think to myself, so 4 years after spending, and again, if I had paid for it, would have been close to $100,000 going to a Big Ten school. There's this piece of paper that hangs actually on the wall right behind my computer, and it's a diploma. And then you get into the workforce, and this diploma, this education that that some people chose to get, is supposedly gonna get you what you want in a job. And I've been thinking a lot about how, I have this management training program that we have as a business, and there's a lot of management training programs in the world. A lot of companies have some type of growth in their companies and organization. And I think sometimes how different and how actually in our organization and our business, that people actually get a real education about skills and things that they really need to grow in their life. And so when I look at our business and the real education, in my opinion, the MBA that you should be wanting to get in your life, the MBA of skills that you're going to build over and over that are going to serve you your entire life. In my opinion, that's what you should be looking for. And so when I think of as people get started, and again, a lot of management, Enterprise has one, and there's a couple other ones that are, I guess, relatively have similarities. But in the industry that we're in and that I'm in, and a lot of people on this channel watch, I want to talk about the education that you're getting and how invaluable those skills are. So when we start people in our business, we start them in sales, right? And in sales, I'll tell you, there's 3 things I like to tell people when they're new into sales. The first thing is, if it was easy, everyone would do it. And the reality is, in sales, it's challenging. It actually forces people to level up their own business. And when I say their own business, like, you're the CEO of your life. You're the CEO of your brand. And in sales, you find out very quickly what your brand stands for. So if you're someone that has trouble with attitude or positivity, or how other people's emotions or other people's ways kind of affect you, it comes out in the sales industry, and you don't do very well. And so that's humbling. And so when it's difficult, that is where the value comes. And that's where the growth occurs. And so, in my opinion, the sales, it's vital. So if it's easy, everyone to do it. Number 2, I tell people in sales is, don't be emotional. Don't take things personal. That is a life skill. That is something that takes a lot of training. There can be a lot of times that you will take things personal, that you will think that people are talking about you, and they're not. But you take it that way. There's people that walk by, and I know we're in a retail setting. There's people that come by and they're rude and they say something. And, I've learned when people get upset sometimes in their life, they take it out on other people. And the reality is they're just telling you where they stand inside. And that's not about you. And that's okay. And you have to be mature enough and strong enough to realize that, hey, it's okay. It's not about me. It's about them. And in sales, I just kind of advise the young salespeople is I tell them to let people, if they're carrying a lot of trash with them, and it's a little smelly and whatever, and it comes out in their attitude, just let them take their trash somewhere else. Just get them away from you, right? And then number 3, I would say, careful who you take advice from, right? So again, in a world of sales, in a world of performance, and again, these are things that people are learning. And this is just a general life experience. I would never take advice from someone who's not qualified to give me advice. Right? So there's people that have opinions, and trust me, there's a ton of people that have opinions, especially in the sports world. Wow. Like, you have some players that are just amazing athletes, and the moment they have a mistake or they have a problem, I was in Miami watching Inter Miami play the other night, and they weren't playing the best in the first half. And there's fans who are like, oh, that guy should be off the field, that guy. And these are like old, out of shape soccer people that, maybe know the game, maybe not. And they're like, I hate that guy. That guy gives the ball away. It's like, he's on the field. You're in the stands. You're sitting up here. You have nothing to do with him. And I would assume he's had other people tell him that. But I wouldn't take advice from the guy sitting in the stands. I wouldn't take advice from someone who's not in the game, right? But carefully take advice from. And then also in sales, important thing education you get is you learn about your own integrity. And, when no one is watching, your integrity comes out. It's, people say that character isn't tested when things are, when nobody's around or things are pushing you. Character is revealed. Right. So the harder something is, the less, there's people around you giving you high direction. And the more you have to make your own decisions, that is building your character, building your integrity. And that's awesome. And again, not just in our industry, when people are young in business, most companies start them off in sales because we want to see who somebody is. We want to see what their character is. We want to see what their integrity is long before they get a chance to possibly advance. And so, when I think of sales and the education, and listen, you have to master sales. And really, beyond the sales, it's mastering communication, mastering how to negotiate, mastering how to listen. Because in leadership, if you ever have aspirations to move into management positions where you manage or you lead staff, it's vital that you are good and that you are strong. And don't get me wrong, there's things that I make mistakes on all the time. I'm not perfect by any means. I don't try to be. But if you have that experience early on, then hopefully long term and down the road, you don't make as many mistakes. Now, besides the education of sales, we start people off in sales, and I was talking to a buddy of mine who manages a pretty large company. His business is on pace this year to close to 3 million in business in sales this year. And he's like, can you imagine if, as you hire people, when it comes to like compensation and different things, can you imagine if you sat in front of someone, you looked at their resume and you said, you know what? I like you. You're worth, I don't know, $12 an hour. Next person comes in, look at their resume. I like you a little bit better than the last person. You're worth 14. I like you better. You went to this school. You know this person. No, you're a friend of mine, blah, blah. You're worth $20 an hour. And other people are determining what your value is. Now, again, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people in the world that this is how they operate. There's a lot of companies in the world that this is how they make decisions. And again, there's maybe experience in it. There's maybe trends or whatever. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but I think the interesting thing about, again, people that jump into sales is they don't want people to tell them how much they're worth. In our business and what we do, you make $400 a day or more every day, you'll make $100,000 a year. And this is an relatively entry level sales position. And so when there's no cap on what you can do, again, it comes back to you. Because in sales, people who do really well in sales love the control of determining their effort. They have a lot of fun dealing with customers. And when there's no cap, they can make whatever they want to make. And it's very, again, interesting in the organization we're in, this program we have a ton of people on pace to make over $100,000 this year. A ton. The average person 5 years ago was making less than $50,000 a year. Our average person this year is going to be pushing $60,000 a year. It's interesting. And then being the third and fourth quarter, there's a lot more potential in the third and fourth quarter. It's just retail. It's just what statistics say. Right. And so, and then also people love the competitiveness. They love the contest. They love the travel. They love the other things. But people who love the sales side of things, they kind of like that control. But just remember this, if you're in our industry and you're in that role and you're starting to kind of learn more about you, just know that it's between you and you. They say the root of all evil is comparison, right? So don't ever compare yourself to someone else. I would just ask myself hey, what do they have? Or what can I learn from them? That's a huge thing that I would do. It's things that in the past that I didn't do that really kind of got in my way of my mindset. And if you happen to be in an organization like the one that we're in, where they give you a chance to get promoted in under 5 years to leadership or management positions, because there's a lot of organizations that say, hey, you have to be with us for at least 5 years before you get a chance to move up at anything. And it's more performance-based. Then I would encourage you to know, if you're looking to get into that next phase of growth and leadership equals, in my opinion, influence. So when I look at staff here in the office and I help manage teams, right? One of the things that, again, it's just, I'm curious about people, right? And one thing I like to do is in my team, I like to have people wear shirts and ties. And the reason I like that is because I want them to dress for the job that they want, not the job they have. I want them to feel good. When people get dressed up, they feel good, they look good, they do good, right? And so sometimes there's people on my team that don't have a tie and whatever. They're young in their career and all this kind of stuff. And I don't really say anything to them. What I do is I talk to the kind of the leader of that team, and I empower that leader to then turn around and have influence. And and at the end of the day, it's their choice, it's their team. They can handle it the way they want to. And so, and what I'm trying to do is see the power of their influence. Because long term, as people lead and manage more than just maybe a couple people, their influence is going to make a difference in people's lives. And listen, whether someone wears a tie or not, it's not the end of the world, right? It's more about influence. And so, when people respect their leader and they respect what they're talking about, then they tend to listen, right? And so, and again, it goes for performance as well, right? So the hardest part about being in leadership, especially in the business that we're in, and people get stuck here. They don't oftentimes the transition from being just an I-driven person, a sales-driven person, and moving into a leadership type of influence and handling the sales, that there's like a point of getting stuck. And the challenge is performing at a high level and being the example, and then also coaching, mentoring, and being organized enough to take on responsibilities. And I'll tell you, I know this. No, this is like multiplied by 10. Being a dad, I can tell you, story after story, just with like the drinking milk out of the cereal. My little guy who was 3 years old, he ends up pouring it all over himself, and he looks at me like stunned, and I'm like about to be like, "Why'd you do that?" Kind of thing. And then before I said anything, I looked at him and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, he just watched me drink my milk out of my cereal. He doesn't have the balance to do it, and he ends up pouring it all over his face." And I'm like, I just smile at him and kind of laugh. But that transition to leadership and that transition to knowing that your example actually does matter is really big. But it's super important to know, as for any of you guys that are moving towards leadership roles, or maybe you're in a leadership role now and you aspire to be in a management position like we have in our training program. It's important to know that in leadership, there's in a relationship, it's got to be 50-50, right? If a relationship's 70-30, meaning you're going out of your way and you're going out and trying really hard or whatever, and then someone's only putting in 30%, that's an unbalanced relationship, and that relationship won't work long term. And then also, if you're putting in 30% and they're putting in 70%, and again, it's unbalanced the other way, it's not going to work. It's got to be 50-50. And so a saying I heard recently, for years, I didn't really know how to put it into words, how relationships really make a difference. But one of my buddies, Benny, said to me months back, he said, you have to own 100% of your 50% of any relationship, especially in a coaching capacity, especially in a leadership capacity. Right. And so how do you own that 100% is you do your best to be a fantastic example. You do your best to say, if you ever can, and the best leaders will say things like, what did you see me do? Not what did I say to do, is what did you see me do? And if with complete confidence, you can say, what did you see me do? And then they're just going to say, I saw you do this. Then cool. Then normally, and it's a good example, right? It's the right thing that you want them to do. Then normally people are going to follow your lead. And it's an old saying that I learned young in my career: monkey see, monkey do. It's not monkey say, monkey do. So I encourage you to think about, how can your example, how can your influence make a difference in someone else's life? And I'll tell you that influence, and the truth about leadership is, leadership's relatively small decisions, just repeated over and over. And it's, to be honest, it's not even sexy. It's not even fun. It's not whatever. It's like getting into the office at the same time. It's doing little things when nobody's watching, like creating a calendar. It's like, doing a schedule and sticking to the schedule. It's like you're having little systems or little processes and inspecting things. And then just doing it and actually inspecting the schedule, making sure people are doing what they need to do. And that's what like, and then delegating things. And okay, if you ask someone to do something and then, give them a chance to speak or give them a chance to kind of work with your team that you're working with or whatever. And, maybe they show up for it. Maybe they're prepared for it. Maybe they do great at it. Maybe they don't do anything at all. Maybe they don't even communicate. Who knows? But that's what leadership's all about. It's starting to go through those trials and tribulations of empowering, of coaching, supporting, and learning from those things. But like I said, leadership is really small decisions compiled over time. I heard somebody yesterday at an office in a business I was visiting. Someone got promoted, and one of the things they said about one of the other leaders in the office, and they just said they appreciate how much that other person was consistent. And not in sales, just consistent in their life, because they were in their early 20s and they're looking for someone that they could follow. They're looking for someone that could be a great example for them. And what they've seen, again, it wasn't what the person had told him, is what he has seen for I think 6 or 12 months that the person had been working for being coached by this individual, is they just said, I just see you day in and day out do these things. I see you do them every single day. And because I see that, to me, it's inspired me to make changes in my life to grow my situation. And I'll tell you, and a huge part about leadership too, if you're learning how to train and mentor staff, it's around conversations and having one-on-one conversations. There's some conversations you go into and learning how to build, right? Learning how to build people. To be fair, there's some honest conversations that are uncomfortable, that some people walk away from, and they think that you're the devil and they think that you're the worst thing in the world. And then later, when they lose the emotions, they realize, oh, that was pretty important, or whatever. And that's okay too. But when you go through those, I remember early in my career, and even, nowadays, there's conversations that you may have that may not go the way you planned. There may not go, and the people may not get what you meant to, that didn't even hear your intention or hear your message. And that's okay, right? But then you look at it and you think about it, and okay, how can I do it differently? How can I do it better? But leadership, again, in my opinion, if you want to be a great leader, it's doing these things over time and getting good at them and getting better at them and screwing them up and doing them again and screwing them up and getting better. But always having this attitude of, I'm a lifelong. If I'm going to be a leader, it's not just going to be about business. There's a higher purpose to lead. Somebody asked me when I was traveling, do I think the 20 years of being an entrepreneur has helped me to be a better dad? And, and I said to them, I was like, to be fair, I don't know what it'd be like if I wasn't an entrepreneur, right? If I didn't have all this experience. But I mean, I guess you can only imagine the thousands of one-on-ones I've done, the tens of thousands of meetings I've ran, the thousands of phone calls I've gotten for somebody where they had life going on and I'm just trying to give them love and support them. I can only imagine it's helped, right? It's just practice, right? It's just practice. And but I will tell you this, another important leadership lesson that I learned and I continue to learn is you are who you attract. You are who you attract. So if there's things that you want to see in your people, in your team, as you're learning life and business, you want to manage staff, you gotta do it first here inside, and you got to be the example, because your people will be a reflection of you, right? And as you own the 50% that you own, then hopefully if they come in a little bit, maybe rough around the edges, or they got to be molded and groomed, maybe they'll look at that 50% that you own and they'll make some changes. And, sometimes they don't, which is okay too. But I want to leave you guys with this. Being a great leader takes decision-making. And there's 4 or 5 things I think about when you make decisions. If you guys know big wave surfing, but Laird Hamilton is a big wave surfer. He's an entrepreneur. And he talked about how making decisions is like training a muscle. And so I'll give you guys, as you lead people and you're getting this education, a little bit different than college, you're actually getting real life education. That muscle of decision making is huge. So A couple things to think about when you're making decisions, because you make thousands of decisions every day, thousands, small, big, important, not important, like thousands. I would think about these things if you want to make the right decisions. So number one, I would think about is what condition in the mind are you at when you make a decision? If you're really tired, or you're really stressed, or you have a lot going on in your world, I would be careful making important decisions in that time, in that condition. I've totally done it, and I've made some bad ones. But I would definitely think about what condition am I in, and I wouldn't make important decisions under stress or under emotional states. The second thing, and just so you know, the science behind it, and the key is understanding how your physical state of mind and how much effort you put into your own mind, your body, your physical effort and physical training. The science behind it is right here in your brain. You have this frontal lobe, and the more you work out, the more you do things physically, it actually enhances the brain to be more focused and to be more able to make decisions and great decisions. So again, if your conditioning is tired and stressed, the thing that I would encourage you to do is to work out, is to do something physical, sweat, because what that'll do is it'll help you get back in the right condition, right state of mind. Number two, when making the right decision, I would ask myself is how much practice do I have at making this decision? Sometimes you're going to be doing things that you don't know what to do, right? You've never come across this scenario before. And that's when I would lean on a coach, and I always talk about having a mentor and having a coach that you consistently speak to is vital if you want to make great decisions. So often people get perspective, and obviously at a high level, depends on who the coach is. And so if you can get practice at it by leaning on someone's experience before you do it, then that can be huge. Now, if you have practice at making decisions and you've done it before, it's like riding a bike, then okay, pull the trigger and do your thing. But I would think about how much practice do I have at making this type of decision. Number three is discipline. Making great decisions and making the right decisions takes discipline. Sometimes your emotion as a coach or a mentor, you may get pulled away from things. You may get distracted. But the best of the best, all the greats have discipline, even in high emotional states. So I was reading this book recently about the decisions people make, and it was talking about some of the football coaches of the most recent Super Bowls, and the guy at Kansas City was talking about making a fourth down call when they had 4th and 3, and he'd been in this situation, and his emotions were high, but he was disciplined because he told himself, and his coaching staff discussed ahead of the game that in 4th and 3, as long as they're past the 50, they're going for it. They're going to play offense. And it was what turned around the Kansas City Chiefs a few Super Bowls ago to get them back on track and get them in to win the Super Bowl that day. But they stayed disciplined to what the game plan was. Number 4 is candor. Candor and making great decisions. Sometimes you have to have candor. And leaders are direct, and they're pointed, right? And they see the big picture, and they encourage people to see the big picture. But sometimes leaders in decision making have to have candor, and not everyone's going to like the decisions people make, and it is that's okay. And then the last two, intention. I would think about what is the intention, what is the intent of making this decision, and making a great decision it takes intention. Oftentimes people's decisions are rooted in their values, rooted in their vision, rooted in kind of what they're doing, why they're doing it. And again, if people don't know about a decision to make, lean on someone that has made these decisions before. And then the last thing I'd say about decision making as a leader, which is vital to grow long term in any business, is failing. You're going to make decisions, you're going to do things, and you're going to fail. So your attachment, your relationship with failure actually helps you make better decisions later. Some people have made decisions in their careers where it's like the end of the world. It blows everything up. It's just the worst thing ever. And then, and again, in the sports world, in this book I'm reading, the sports world will make it even worse than it is, right? The media has an interesting way of taking a small little crack in a foundation in something and blowing it up and making it a bigger deal than it is. But the question is, if again, if you're not a high profile athlete or whatever, do you do that to yourself? Do you falsify your own media, right? Do you make things a bigger deal than they are? And I've learned that the more you can have a relationship with failing forward and learning from your own mistakes and learning from things you did is huge. And I'll tell you an interesting stat about the NFL, right? So all coaches don't they're not the long-term, best of the best of the greats. Every year since 2000, they're on average out of 32 teams, 7 NFL coaches on average get fired every year. 7. So it's almost 30%, 25% roughly. 20 to 25% of every coach gets fired every year. And why does the NFL do that? Why do the ownership of these teams change leadership and change the coaching staff? It's because of these things, right? People's decisions and different things. There's a game this past weekend. Somebody went on 4th and 2 on their own 30-yard line, and they're losing the game. It's like, holy cow. They're winning the game, and they almost lost the game because of it. But that coach's decision, he felt like he had to go for it because, his job was on the line, is what people are saying, right? And so, but yeah, high performers and making great decisions is vital. But I'll leave you guys with that. I'll tell you, the neat thing about the management training program that we have and that the business, a lot of businesses have, is the education you get is more valuable than your college education. And again, I know it because I went through it. I know I was in an office again recently, in a few offices actually. And I like to ask them, hey, do you feel like you're growing? If you come in, do you feel like since you started here, you had, professional or personal growth? Raise your hand. And yesterday in particular, out of about 70 people, every single person rose their hand. And I bet you if I asked the same question in our office here, it'd be a similar type of percentage. A high percentage of people would say they're growing and they're learning, which is vital. The neat thing about some businesses like our model is when people graduate, they actually graduate with not only a ton of skills, they graduate with a ton of experience, but they also graduate and they get a chance to run a market. They get a chance to run a business. That is a huge positive for some industries, some organizations. So, but anyways, I wanted to share it with you. I've been on my mind lately how valuable an education is where you work. And I'll tell you, not all organizations they lean on the educational piece. They lean on, paying it forward and adding value to their staff. Hard to believe that a lot of places today, that a lot of people, a majority of the world today will go into their office and they don't have any time put aside to add value to their people. And I'll tell you, as I was recently brought on to the board of trustees of the best and brightest companies here in Detroit, I work with some of the biggest companies and their CEOs and their vice presidents in Detroit, and they're always blown away. They're like, "How much time do you spend with your staff, educating and adding value?" I'm like, "Every day I'm in the office. It's a huge part of our day." Because we believe that we add value to our staff, that they're going to turn around and add value to the world. So anyways, happy Friday, everybody. Hopefully you guys got a lot out of this. Please share our Clear channel with anyone you know and help us complete our mission and continue our mission of changing the world one leader at a time. Thanks for jumping on. See you guys.